everybody. It's 1 o'clock, and we've got a pretty packed schedule today in terms of information we want to get across, so we're going to get started on time. Thank you for coming today. My name's Simon Peel. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Jitterbit. This is my 15th Dreamforce, I believe. In my first Dreamforce, I was given a really nice blanket that I could take to the beach, and it was fantastic. But given there are 3,300 sessions, I think, at this point, I don't think every speaker is going to get one of those, most unfortunately. So I guess about 10 years ago and 8 years ago, I was presenting for a company that I built called Cast Iron Systems, which I sold to IBM, and that's how I ended up in IBM. That was sold for $250 million, so it was an important thing then to be able to connect Salesforce with lots of other things. However, since then what's happened is the advent of APIs, the advent of many other apps and applications in the ecosystem. There are more than 1,000 vendors now out in the Moscone Center. So how do we make sense of this? Because in the old days, what you do is just go and buy a platform. You'd go and buy Oracle. You go and buy SAP. You go and buy Salesforce. Life is good. Job done. Today, there's so many different components that we have to look at for best of breed. We've got to try and make sense of that, all the while doing something serious, which is digital transformation, and really making a big difference in our companies. So this presentation today is going to look at 3 specific areas of digital transformation. The first is taking a look at what does it mean anymore? Because I don't know about you, but I've heard this term digital transformation forever. And I've lost track of what it actually means. And we'll talk about the evolving definition and what it actually means today. The second thing is we're going to talk about how do we innovate. Let's not just transform, but let's actually do something startlingly different for the users of the systems that we create. And the third thing is, how do we do this with Salesforce at the epicenter of all of that? Right, we're here because we believe in what Mark talked about yesterday. We believe that we are changing the world. This thing is so different because of what's happened with Salesforce. But Salesforce has become just one of the many systems that we work with. And we want to put the Salesforce engine right at the heart of all of these different technologies. And we'll show you how to do that and how Jitterbit actually enables you to do that. So I thought we'd kick off with something interesting, which is the definition of transformation. Most people think we would think we know what digital transformation is about. But if you read this, what we see is some interesting words. So the investment, this definition actually came from an Altimeter research paper posted and created in October this year. And the investment in and development of new technologies, mindsets, business and operational models to improve work, competitiveness, and deliver new and relevant value for customers and employees in an ever-evolving digital economy. So what you hear there a lot is new, evolving, changing, rapid. The pace of change has got so fast now that you almost become disconnected from it if you're not careful. What we find are that there are 3 big things that are driving this digital and ever-changing digital transformation. Number 1 is disruption. So it's fine if nothing changes in your, in your ecosystem. But imagine you're a New York cab driver that owns one of the coveted medallions that are worth $1.2 million, and Uber comes up, and you just don't do anything. You're like, here today, gone tomorrow. No big deal. What disruption? What is that? We know what the unfortunate side effect now is that people are being turfed out of their houses because the value of that medallion is about $260,000 to $280,000 now. So those medallions were used as security on people's homes. So if you sit and say, what does it matter? It'll matter big time to you as that disruption starts to take place. And 89% of people surveyed said that's what they fear the most, and that's the thing that is causing the most trouble. If we also look at some other things, the competition isn't sitting waiting for digital transformation. They're driving it. So you're either going to be somebody who's pushing this and leave this room with some ideas and go and do something about it, or you're just going to sit back and be, and get the call from the bank one day. So I really think this is a serious business. The other part is that 95% of people say, what does transformation mean to me? What does that really mean? It means doing something that's truly different, that the client can actually put their finger on and say, with this particular ride service, in those days Uber, today Lyft doesn't have quite the same surge as Uber does, as an example. We're looking at 10x right now on Uber. There's got to be something that's differentiated, something that causes you to think, yes, I'll use that business versus something else. So what is it? What is it that you're working on that is so different and so transformational? So these are the 3 big drivers behind digital transformation these days. Okay. let me just go back there. The thing about digital transformation as well is that it's not always successful. In fact, 84% of digital transformations fail. That's not a good statistic, is it? 90% of people think that, yeah, we better do something because we're going to be disrupted, and yet 84% end up failing. So clearly there's something not right. The reason for this is that the innovation is actually happening around us. And as we're consumers now. We're not just people that work at companies. So things like, in fact, I'll just tell you, my 11-year-old son put this slide together. So I said to him, I need there are some terms, Jack, that you won't understand, but, just if you can help me with some graphics, that'd be great. Within he'd done this whole slide in about 6 minutes. But he said, Internet of Things. You mean like when we switch the lights on and off, Daddy, with Alexa, that kind of thing? I'm thinking, oh yeah, he's just described voice recognition, AI, and Internet of Things all in one thing. And it's perfectly natural to him. It was no big deal. I was like, wow, that's great. He was, well, okay, Dad, I'll go and jump on the trampoline now. But the point is that these things are so normal to us as consumers, it's no big deal. But in our organizations, we don't have these things. A lot of these technologies, machine learning, blockchain, AI, VR, Internet of Things, and so on, are kind of buzzwords versus things that are du jour and things that we do every day. So that's what's causing this problem, the rift between digital transformations failing and the need to actually build something different. So organizations are actually stepping away from IT in general and the big digital multi-year transformations and saying, I've got to hit the panic button. I've got to do something different. And two of the things, hackathons are becoming more and more common. That's basically, let's get in a room, forget about the realities, let's get some Post-its, and let's start ideating about what could be. Let's disconnect ourselves from how difficult things are to do and just dream for a second. If we can just have some ideas, maybe we can go and create something and do something different. Innovation tours. I've never seen so many buses around Silicon Valley, and it's not just Google people being schlepped up and down. It's actually people coming from many other countries to meet startups and to come through our VCs and so on to say, what are you doing? What's new? What's different? I've got to have something that's different. And so companies are desperately trying to find that particular thing that's going to make them so different. Now, coming up with that difference is one thing, but there's also the how do you do that? How do you act? Once you've got that idea, once you've gone through the ideation, what do you do with it? Well, I like to look at companies that are already successful, people that have made changes that have startled me. So if I look at things like WhatsApp and Instagram, YouTube, Uber, pretty valuable companies, right? Look at WhatsApp, $16 billion. Okay, that's one thing. The thing that startled me was how many people it took to create that wealth. So the number of people that created $16,000 million worth of value was 55. There were 13 people that generated $1 billion company in Instagram, right? 65 in YouTube, and there were just 23 people at Uber when Uber went live across 24 cities in America. This can be done, right? So that company is now worth more than GM and Honda and so on. So that is transformation. Right? Not these multi-year things. So that's what we want to drive here. Now, how do they do it, though? And the answer really lies in this theme of composition versus writing everything. So in IT for years, we've gone through this thing called the programmatic era. And if you want anything done, you can program it. You can create it. That's the way we've always done things. And the great thing is, it's a Swiss Army knife. You can do whatever you want with code. Anything's possible. There's only two problems with it: time and money. So by the time you've done it, nobody wants it, and it overruns so much that the project gets cancelled. There's your 84% failure rate right there. So what the companies that we just looked at did is decided that if I want a map and put it on a mobile app, I'm going to use Google. It's going to cost me 0.0007 of 1 cent to get a map of any place on the face of this planet, and it'll do it sub-second. If I want to do charging, if I want to do billing, no credit cards involved, there's 1,000 billing services, right? Use Zuora, there's plenty of those things. Just call it. So the point is, compose these solutions from what exists versus spending all your time creating and writing code. Now, there are 3 big trends that I want to draw your attention to in composition. If you only focus on these 3 trends, you'll have nailed some amazing transformation in the shortest time possible. Number 1 is the composition of platforms, and this really comes to the heart of Dreamforce and to the heart of the Epicenter discussion we're going to have as we go along here. But 2 or 3 short years ago, if somebody said, I want a marketing platform, you'd say Pardot. Or you might say Eloqua, or you might say HubSpot, or something like that. There you go, I've got my marketing platform. But today, a marketing platform is comprised of many, many best-of-breed solutions. At Jitterbit, we have 16 different solutions that comprise our marketing platform. So we use Bizzable, we use Insight Squared for analytics, we use a thing called Mad Kudu that predicts who's going to buy the product sooner and therefore gets the reps to go after that using lots of AI, predictive technology, and so on. But all of that needs to get tied together, and that is our platform. If you look at Cisco, I was listening to the guy that's responsible for driving $1 billion every 12 months of new business into Cisco. Think about $1 billion, not in his lifetime, but every single 12 months. How does he do that? And he explained, well, I have 39 different technologies that form my platform, one of which is Salesforce.com, as you can see down the bottom right-hand side here. But when he wants to do things like, let's do an upsell campaign. Right? Cisco has tons of customers. Let's go get them to buy some more. We start with Salesforce, and we say, who do we think might be the population we want to go after? We then take that and we feed it into 6 Sense. It'll do some AI, it'll do some predictive analytics and say, actually, of the entire population you just sent me from Salesforce, only this 20% of the guys I think you should go after. They're the right profile. From there, we go to Eloqua and pump that thing out in a campaign across many channels. Using App Annie, they're able to then do that in a mobile way as well as all the other channels. Adobe Target is then used to do A/B testing live, and those campaigns are changing as they're executing because they're watching the click-through rates and who opens and so on, and those words that are triggering the fastest are the ones that endure and get changed using the A/B testing. Hopefully somebody gets driven to the website and engages with one of our salespeople at Cisco, and the live agent then gets hold of that person and generates some upsell. So that's one example of a platform. Now, probably what you see there is some need for integration. Probably you see a process behind that. And that's just one of the things they do with those 39 systems. There's probably 100, 200, 300. Each has all those steps and so on. So you want to compose, you want to innovate, but you can now feel some of the complexity that is there. But whether you like it or not, this is your reality. Think about your internal systems. You don't have just Salesforce anymore. You know, I wish you did, Mark wishes you did, but that's just not the way it is. And by the way, this isn't just marketing, in case you think it is. HR is the biggest user of services, so more than anyone else. So they have onboarding systems. You've got to post the job. You've got to then track the applicants. You've got to do things like background checking and so on, onboarding processes, and on it goes. So this is exploding across the enterprise. The second big trend here is the composition of apps. So yes, you can write an app. Anybody can get Objective-C, get the toolkit, and start writing. Right? Hammer the keyboard as fast as you can. That'll never get you anywhere. What it will do is get you displaced in the market. There are, fortunately, hundreds, actually there's thousands now, of existing APIs that can do all kinds of things, from messaging to mapping to geospatial analysis to predictions and so on. Fantastic. You know what the problem is? This. What about the enterprise? What about us? How do you connect? Well, we don't do we don't do anything with the enterprise. Oh, we just delete everything that's ever been done in all of human history. We're not interested anymore. We'll just start afresh. I'm not sure that's going to work as a great plan. But there is another good plan, which is we're going to hire millions of developers to go and bang on the keyboard as fast as they can and break up all those old systems into microservices so we can then recompose them and do all this great composition. Great. We'll just stop development of anything new. That's another great plan. Okay, that doesn't really sound so good to me. So we're going to show you a way that you can do that in a much more automated and rapid fashion. But imagine if you could unlock everything in the enterprise and do it quickly. The third thing is the composition of AI solutions. So AI has exploded recently. Right? AI has been around since the 50s, and you know what we've done with AI so far? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Like since the 50s, have you used it? Have I used it? Nobody's touched it. And the reason is companies like IBM, who I used to work for, bless them, would take Watson and lock it behind the firewall and say, you pay me $10 million and you can walk behind this curtain and we'll let you in and you can look at it and so on. Today, I can make a call, like I mentioned, to GCP for 0.0007 of 1 cent. And in fact, if you're doing up to 10,000 calls, it's free. So this $37 billion investment that Google's made and Watson with IBM and obviously Einstein and so on, free tiers, not $37 billion to build. Right? So you have access to all of this knowledge and all of this interest. Now, it used to be that we thought that you would talk to the big brain. That's how AI would be. that there'd be a big voice in the sky, and it would tell you what to do, and you'd think about some sci-fi movie, and that's the way life would be. But the reality is that actually AI is getting embedded in applications. So things are not going to change in the sense that, oh, how am I going to code this? How am I going to get AI into my application, blah, blah, blah. What you're going to do is infuse AI into the existing applications you have. This is just one simple example. And I think there are 70 characters in the one line, in the one call that you make in Jitterbit to translate any language into any other language by calling GCP as one example of a translation engine, or Watson. So that's how simple it is. So we can add multi-language support into Salesforce with literally one line of text that goes into the system. But the point is that all users then in call centers, they can be speaking one language. I selected specifically British English for whatever reason, and then these people out here are speaking completely different languages, and yet the AI engine can just infuse that translation as it runs through the app. So I want to change your mind a little here a little bit with AI. Don't think about AI about something that you have to build apps for. Just continue to use what you're using and think about how can I infuse, what intelligence would I infuse into that? So one quick other example is, wouldn't it be good if you just had a system that was watching and saying, I just want to listen to what people are saying on the call centers or the kind of discussions that are happening. And when I feel sentiment is poor and someone's angry and upset, yes, you gave them the right answer. You have to take your iPhone and you have to throw it out because it's out of warranty. Go and buy another one. Perfectly right answer, 100% coverage, but the person is angry as heck. What do you mean? Do you know how much I paid for this thing? That's outrageous. Their sentiment is incredibly negative, but the accuracy of what they're told is incredibly positive. The machine will know that. If they cross-reference that with who you are, you happen to be one of the most important customers, at the time, then we can fire off a Slack message and get that fixed immediately, as one example. So this is how you can very quickly infuse AI into existing applications and business processes. So we've taken a look at a couple of important things here. One is the fact that digital transformation is not a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year journey that maybe we'll get there. You're going to get to where the hockey puck's already gone, right? You're somewhere you shouldn't be, and 84% of the time you're going to fail. You're not going to be writing things anymore. I know you've got developers. We all do, and we love developers. Developers are there to do the things that nobody else can do, not to do the stuff that's already been done, and not to do the stuff which is mundane and so on. So really that composition is where we want them focused. Once we've ideated, we want developers focused on composing these solutions and putting them together. So the question now is, this is great. Now, how do you do that? If I wanted to do that, how exactly would I do that? And at Jitterbit, we focus on making Salesforce the center of this digital transformation journey. Salesforce needs to know when you're out there doing a campaign which is outside of Salesforce. As I said earlier, Mark and others wish that everything was going to be done in Salesforce, and it's not. It's just not the reality. I've had conversations just recently, and we talk about Slack as an example. Just when something goes wrong and our biggest customer is having an issue, I want to know that on Slack. And what I hear from Salesforce is, you can do that on Chatter. Oh, okay. So not Slack. No, forget Slack. Slack doesn't exist. Garbage. Just use Chatter instead. There are sentiment analysis engines and so on. Well, that's Einstein. Yeah, but there are other AI engines, and I'd like to employ those as part of the data that I have in Salesforce. Because there's really two, and what's polarizing here is that either I'm able to compose and be able to connect Salesforce into these other areas, or Salesforce becomes an ever-decreasing part of the answer. The answer will not be everything done in one place. We're not going back to that. It's best of breed now. And the way that I've been getting this across is to say, let me say it a different way. You ask me a question, and I say, okay, well, how do I do CRM? And I say, Oracle. And the Salesforce guys go, ugh. And I say, yeah, okay, do it again. How do I do marketing? And I go, Oracle. And they go, ERP, yeah, Oracle. Oracle, Oracle, Oracle. How does this sound to you? And they go, this is stupid, right? I'm like, precisely. So that's how stupid it is to say that all these things need to be deleted, and we just buy that. So we need to get to this point where we can pull these things together. And what we're describing here is a number of different things, but clearly integration is a key component of this. Now, integration is an interesting thing. I went on the App Exchange last week just preparing for this and said, so how would I do that? If I was in your shoes and I knew that I need to tie this stuff together, how would I do it? And the good news is there's 224 integration tools on the App Exchange. The bad news is there's 224 tools on the App Exchange. So therein lies the problem. There's only 6 vendors in the Magic Quadrant for a reason. There's 98 iPaaS vendors, apparently. Now, outside of the 6, the rest, the long tail has no more than $3 million in revenue annually. That's not. I'm not going to bet my digital transformation on a vendor that earns less than $3 million a year. So what I would encourage you to do is look for Class A vendors and not somebody that says, oh, I'll have a go. I'm sure it can't be that difficult. Because it is that difficult. So here's the Jitterbit piece. Now, how do we differentiate ourselves? What I'd love to tell you is that, yeah, there's this magic widget, magic feature, magic bullet, magic all this stuff. That's not true. If you look at most of the integration vendors today, we're not dissimilar to each other in terms of functionality. So I'll just get that out on the table. So often conversations with me start with, well, what have you got that these guys don't have and all the rest of it? And I say, you're looking in the wrong place. So everything we've just described is about speed and agility and getting something done. Right? So if you want to take any of the examples I've given with AI, with Slack, with translation, any of that stuff, it's something that needs to be done quickly and impress the heck out of the line of business and the clients and the partners and so on. So we focus our attention. Yes, we've got all the same features, functionality, and actually I think a bunch that are a lot better. But what we focus on is customer success. We are very proud that Gartner spends every year, does the Magic Quadrant, and spends a lot of time now not listening to us, but talking to our customers. It's a very different thing than they used to do, right? Because we could tell them anything, and they put it in the Magic Quadrant, everyone's happy. Unfortunately, though, for other vendors, they start to now go and talk to a lot of clients. And if you read what's said about Jitterbit, it's great support. People love this stuff. It actually works. It gets the job done. We've actually got, I don't know, 12, 15 sessions, most of which this time we're not presenting. We're just having customers present. So the real difference is that ability to get things done. We have a 105% net retention rate, which means that not only do people continue to use the product, they then buy more of the product going forward. I think that speaks volumes. And with the under 30-day go-live date for most customers, it means you just get something up and running quickly and then can start to iterate and get even better. Now, what's in this platform? So if I want to make these changes, then what is it exactly that I'm going to be using? And there are 4 things that I want to focus your attention on. The first of those is Citizen Integrator. The term Citizen Integrator means that you don't need to be a PhD, double, triple scientist expert to be able to use and be able to get these systems working together. You should be able to do that very, very simply. So this is our Citizen Integrator component. There are 2 halves to this citizen integration experience that will enable you to compose applications, compose these systems. The first part of that is actually something we call the recipe builder. And that's something where either you take an existing recipe that we've built, we have hundreds of recipes already built out, or you can build a recipe yourself where it takes people down a very simple wizard-driven interface. Give me your login, give me your password to Marketo. These are the list of fields that we'll do by default. Do you want to change those or not? Yes, I do. I want to add a couple of custom fields and push it into production. So keep it nice and simple. And for things that can be templatized, things which are very straightforward, that's no problem. Now, having said that, there's also the ability, sorry, there's 2 halves to this, as I had mentioned, the ability to build these recipes, but then customize those recipes as well, and make sure that they're things that you want to do with your systems. But then there's also the user. So Max Marketer is somebody probably with a non-computer science degree who's an expert marketing person who wants to just be able to follow those simple steps and get into production rapidly. So Citizen Integrator is a key part. Now, I do see a lot of other people talking about this term now, which is great. This product's been out about a year and a half or so and is nice and robust. But that's the first thing that we believe is needed to be able to do this kind of transformation and do it rapidly. The second component is a simple drag-and-drop interface to be able to pull together any kind of integrations, any kind of logic and process logic that you need. So if we go back to the example of Cisco, where we said we've got a campaign running and we want only the best leads and only the things that Sixth Sense believes is needed to go across into Eloqua, then how do we say only move this stuff, not that stuff, and so on? Where's the logic behind that? And that's really where Design Studio comes in. The first part of any kind of project you work with Design Studio involves connecting to something. So you're going to want to connect to Salesforce, obviously. You're going to want to connect to hundreds of other systems, though. And you're also going to want to understand not just those systems, but increasingly the APIs that are around them. So almost every vendor now, as an ISV perspective, provides APIs as their way of interacting with the system. We know that from being in the Salesforce ecosystem, but this is new news to some ISVs. They're just starting to do that. Some of them, it's not new news, but the APIs are not particularly friendly or particularly useful. I'll probably not mention some of those. But the point is that this solution just does away with you having to worry about that. This isn't a coding solution. This is a I want to talk to NetSuite click solution, right? Or Pardot or Sugar CRM. So an essential component of this then with the Design Studio is that you can drill into any of these systems in the back end. So remember earlier we said, what about the enterprise and what about being able to drill into the enterprise? The first part of that is being able to understand client-server systems, green screen, AS400s, mainframes, databases, flat files, anything that exists today can be basically accessed using the integration platform and then fed into Salesforce as that central component. So Salesforce can see and use that data. I want to qualify that a little bit as well and say you don't have to move all data into Salesforce. I believe Salesforce charges for information stored in Salesforce, but a little bit. And so some people don't necessarily want to take all of their SAP implementation and spew it into the cloud, into Salesforce. So they may say, we'll take certain data, we'll take order information, we'll take some of the product data, some of the pricing catalogs and so on. We'll replicate those bidirectionally into Salesforce. But for the rest of the data, if we need it, then we'll go and get it. We'll go and just pick it real time out of SAP as an example. So it is about being able to understand these systems, but it's also about being able to leave data in place if necessary. Now, just so you've seen a little bit of the screens, we're actually making sure that there's a nice, when you're using our product, you're able to choose an endpoint, and then when it comes to making simple decisions inside the tool, it's graphical and it's nice and easy and it's point and click, lots of white space and so on. Salesforce is one of the biggest users of Jitterbit. They process, 1.3 million orders a year. The quote from the EVP, Meredith Schmidt, who reports to Mark, says that it's impossible for Salesforce to close the quarter without Jitterbit because every single order goes through Jitterbit in order to be booked. It gets checked. It gets actually fixed as well. So if there's missing information, Jitterbit automatically fixes a lot of that stuff by adding rules each time there's a problem that's found. So as they're processing these orders, if there is ever an issue they've never seen before, they very quickly just go and add it into the interface here. And then next time that comes up, that order, those types of orders will flow straight through and be booked automatically. They call that actually robotic process automation, so RPA. So what they're saying is instead of hiring more and more and more people to manually scan orders which have got errors in them and then try and correct them, they basically just go straight into Jitterbit and say if an order has no state, go and look up in this table, find that Tennessee, or find that Memphis is in Tennessee and fix the code, the state code, and move it on. We can do that. You can do that faster in Jitterbit and shove it in, and have it running than you can go and fix one order. So that's the way they work with it. The lady who told me that, I said to her, so what's your background? And she said, I'm a sociology major. So you're not a computer person? You're not like, you didn't do computer science at school? No. So these are business people that are using the tool in order to take business rules, embed them quickly, and just get it done. In that meeting, what was interesting is we had the head of IT, And Jason Bieber talked yesterday about this, and I thought, oh, this is going to be ugly, because she's basically saying I'm messing around with the business rules, and he doesn't know anything about it. And so I asked Jason how he felt, and he said, what's great about this is they don't know what the business rules are. If they did, these problems wouldn't exist. So as these things come up, they go into this interface, and they say, well, maybe we'll fix it this way. But maybe that putting the state into that order didn't solve the problem at all. It was a different problem. So they're messing around trying to figure out what the problem is, but they're iterating rapidly as a business. And when the orders go through and everything's humming, they then just give me the Jitterbit project. And as IT, I look at that and go, great, I can now support that. I'll take it. And if necessary, if they want to, they can code that into all kinds of other systems internally. But they've got not just a guess from the business at what's needed, they've got the blueprint of what actually is working in production. So I thought, wow, this is great. You've got the business actually working directly with IT. So hence, we're the go-to tool for Salesforce. I think there's 340, 350 different operations running through Salesforce at the moment. So it's good that they use the tool, but you can see how this is not just an integration schlepping data from one place to the other tool. It's a how do I automate my business processes rapidly kind of tool and do that quickly. Let's come back to the issue of how do I take what's inside the company and start to reuse that and break it down and recompose it into new solutions. And really that comes from the ability to expose APIs. So remember we had the enterprise in the left-hand side here, and how could we possibly create these APIs? And the answer was development and hand coding. That is the answer from most vendors and so on. But from Jitterbit, what we say is, if you can access it, you can expose it, right? If you can find it, if you know where the data resides, you can very quickly create an API for that. Yesterday, one of our customers, the statement that I took down and put on Twitter was, it takes us less than 1 minute to stand up a new API. I thought, man, I just got to sit here and take these pearls from my own customers. Because what they're saying is standing up these APIs and providing access to it takes no more than basically right-clicking and saying, yes, let's expose that. And then Jitterbit will make a URL available. We'll manage that. We'll secure it. We'll govern it. We'll make sure that you need credentials to come through for it. We'll version control that API for you as well. We'll throttle it in case somebody tries to have way too much access, and we don't want them to do that. So all of that's provided as part of the solution. Now, where this is useful is internally, obviously, to be able to then call any part of your existing systems, such as the insurance company I was working with recently who wanted to offer some of their services externally, but they just have their website right now, and you have to ask for a policy, and they'll tell you how much it costs. That's all it can do. But behind the scenes, they've got all kinds of risk management systems, quoting tools, pricing tools, and so on. So they're now starting to look at how can I offer risk services. You give me the profile of somebody, age, how long they've been driving, whatever it may be, and they can give you a number to say this is how risky this person would be to insure. That's incredibly good when you want to know whether I should be doing business with somebody. Are they the sort of person that I want to do business with? So they can now start charging for that. That's not an insurance thing so much as a risk mitigation system. And that API can be stood up in less than a minute. Right? The whole project won't take less than a minute, obviously. But what I'm saying is the technology to be able to do it once you know what you want to do can be done incredibly rapidly. So that's the third component. And again, nice and easy stuff. We take you through a wizard-driven interface. We expose these things. You can see that there's a number 1, there's number 2, number 3, number 4. So you're going through these 4 steps. You're hitting the next button. You're selecting the integrations that are available. And then once they're live, you're able to get the reports on who's using it, how many times the systems have been hit, and so on. So lots of visibility. I say that. Talking to a customer yesterday, what they were saying is that today they get flat files from lots of different vendors who dump them all onto an FTP location. And that data needs to get into their systems in a very, very timely way. But they don't know whether those flat files are the old flat files, new flat files. Did they show up? Did they not show up? And just this visibility in terms of now they don't have to worry about that. Did a flat file show up? I mean, that's good, but that's sort of old school technology. Just call my systems directly with the API. I'll then give you a response saying thank you, got it, and go and insert that and make sure that's all done safely and securely. So you then get that full visibility into what did happen and what did not happen. You also get audit logs as well about who called you, who gave you that data, at what time. So there's governance and there's also provenance as well, and tracking information that's provided. So then the fourth and final component to this is AI, like really being able to infuse AI into business processes. So what we talked about is, wouldn't it be great to be able to take anything in the business, anything that you currently have, any existing application, and to be able to infuse that, with AI, and then expose that out as an API, so that developers who are using Salesforce, and when we say developers, right, anybody that's creating anything in Salesforce are able to call the APIs. And by definition then, because you're using Salesforce and the APIs we've created, you're accessing information that has been infused with AI, even though it's coming from systems which know nothing about AI. They don't know that data has been run through a translation engine or a sentiment analysis engine and so on. So we feel that is an essential component. Now, how tough is it to do AI? And the answer is, it's no more tough. Sorry, I'll go back for a second. It's no more tough than any other simple integration. So this is the call to get translation. So look, connect to Salesforce, get the comment data, and provide the API response. From that, we'll go and get the translation, and then we're going to go and put this back into Salesforce and update the Salesforce system. So nice and simple, and that is all of AI. That's a $37 billion machine working for you sub-second to provide a response from any language to any language. It's that simple, right? So this is what excites me. So your job, you can see, isn't figuring out the technology on how to do this. It's coming up with the ideas and ideating around what you're going to transform your business with. And I want to give you just one example of infusion. So there's a company that's just become a customer of ours, Human Intelligence. What Human Intelligence does is they can take information about the people in your organization and tell you what kind of cultural fit they have. So what they're saying is that when we hire people today, we meet them, we chat to them, and so on. We're trying to assess whether or not they fit into our organization. But whether we know it or not, we're using our own sort of view, our own lens of the world to say, yeah, I like this person, they're great. I'm a C-level person. I love people who are out there looking into the future in terms of what strategies can be done and so on. So you talk a bunch of mundane bits and the low-level stuff. I lose track really easily. I just can't follow that, so I don't necessarily want to hire this person. That is not the way you should be hiring people. So what Human Intelligence is saying is that each group has its own type of culture, actually, inside these environments. And they have multiple different facets. The people that work in those environments are either incredibly, let's say, gregarious, outgoing, whatever it may be, the different personality traits. It's going to analyze all of that and figure out which people fit with which teams. So that's really valuable. Now, if you had to ask people, well, where do you fit? Where do you think you should go? And how's that going to work? So what this does is, right from when people come into the environment, right from when they apply for a job, they're going to be asked a series of simple questions. When they answer those simple questions, the machine can go, you know what? This person's perfect for this department, and this department. Oh, by the way, do not put them in this department. You may think they're perfect. On their resume says they're perfect. Culturally, it'll be a disaster. And Human Intelligence does that like that in a heartbeat. So there's an example of somebody who would be using Salesforce potentially, or using Workday certainly as an example, and yet Workday would just start to tell you, oh, by the way, I suggest we hire this person for these departments and so on. Workday knows nothing about the AI that's been taking place with Human Intelligence, doesn't need to. So there's an example of infusion of AI into your business processes, changes the outcome. Less people leave your company. People stay a lot longer in your firm because of it. And yet you didn't need to know anything about how to code or access these sort of somewhat complex algorithms and so on from coding. So those are the four areas that we believe are required. Today in one of the meetings I was having, I said, you're going to think I did this deliberately or cooked this up to the customer, but these are the four things that we believe are needed, and they mapped identically to that person's requirements. He was talking about we've got to move fast, we've got to empower people to be able to use this other than IT. We can't do everything. We've got to be able to provide things as APIs as well. APIs are big. We've got lots of vendors and B2B companies we work with. And we've got to get a hold of AI, but we just don't know what the use cases are, or we don't know how we're going to actually do that. And so I pulled this out and said, that's what we do. And what I also said, though, is you go and ask any other integration vendor, they're going to say, yeah, that's what we do. That's what, really? Is that how you're carrying yourself? Is that to your core what you believe is needed and you're actually executing on that? And the answer is no. So that's why Jitterbit's different. These are the things that that we need to be able to do what this presentation is about. And that really is to take Salesforce and put it at the epicenter of your digital transformation. So today, I think we've looked at, first of all, what is digital transformation? We've said that digital transformation really is delighting the customer, doing something really different, compelling, and do it now. We've also said that stop writing stuff and start composing stuff. Take what you've already got. Take what's already out there. And the third thing we've said is you can do that and put Salesforce at the center of that entire platform using a tool like Jitterbit that has these essential 4 things that you're going to need in order to execute it. And with that, that's as much as I had prepared to talk about today. I would encourage you to look at it, go see us at the booth, because we have a pretty cool demo of basically asking Alexa which deal's going to close in Salesforce next, and it's going to go and take a bunch of different technologies and tell you, if I was a sales guy, I'd go and call this person. And that's through AI, through voice, integration, and so on, and being able to do predictive analytics, but with Salesforce at the center, at the epicenter of that transformational use case. So with that, we've got, 21 seconds for questions. So I would say that we'll call it a day, and please come and see me or come to the booth and talk. Thank you very much.